Margaret wiped down the kitchen counter one last time, her movements steady and practiced. At 58, she'd spent decades perfecting the art of keeping a home spotless. Her younger sister Sarah had called that morning, voice thick with worry. Their mother had taken a fall, nothing serious, but she needed someone nearby. "I can't miss this shift, Maggie," Sarah had said. "The Harrisons are important clients. If I cancel, I might lose the job." Margaret didn't hesitate. "I'll cover for you. Just tell me what needs doing." Now, standing in the marble foyer of the Harrison estate, Margaret straightened her blue uniform dress with its crisp white apron and adjusted her name tag. The house was beautiful, high ceilings, elegant furniture, sunshine streaming through tall windows. But houses like this could feel empty, she knew. Wealth didn't always mean warmth. She heard footsteps, light and quick, before she saw him. A little boy, maybe 4 years old, came running around the corner, clutching a stuffed elephant. He stopped when he saw Margaret, his brown eyes going wide. "Hi there," Margaret said softly, kneeling down to his level despite her creaky knees. "I'm Margaret. What's your name?" "Tommy," the boy whispered. He held his elephant tighter. "That's a fine-looking elephant you've got." Tommy's face brightened just a little. "His name is Peanut." "Peanut!" "That's a wonderful name." A man appeared in the doorway, tall, maybe 40, wearing a navy suit with no tie. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, and there were shadows under his eyes that spoke of too many sleepless nights. "This had to be Mr. Harrison." "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "Tommy, come here." "Don't bother." He paused, reading her name tag. "Miss Margaret, is it?" "You're new?" "Just helping my sister today, Mr. Harrison. Sarah's family needed her." Margaret stood, offering a warm smile. "I hope that's all right." David Harrison ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly exhausted. "Of course. I'm sorry, it's just—" "Tommy's been through several nannies in the past few months. He doesn't take well to change." Margaret glanced at the boy who'd moved closer to his father's leg. She recognized that look, the wariness of a child who'd learned that people leave. "Well," she said gently, "I'm only here for today. But perhaps Tommy and I could build something with those blocks over there while I work, if that's okay with you, Mr. Harrison." David looked surprised. "You don't have to—" "I raised 3 children of my own," Margaret said. "All grown now with families of their own. I miss the little ones." Something shifted in David's expression. Relief, perhaps, or hope. That would be very kind." The morning passed quietly. Margaret cleaned, but she also sat with Tommy. They built towers of colorful blocks, and she listened as he told her about Peanut's adventures. The boy's voice grew stronger, less hesitant. As the hours went by, "Daddy's always working," Tommy said at one point, matter of fact rather than resentful. "I imagine he works hard to take care of you," Margaret replied, stacking a red block on their tower. "Sometimes grown-ups have to do difficult things because they love us." Tommy considered this. "Like when Mommy went to heaven?" Margaret's hands stilled. "Yes, sweetheart." "Like that." Lunchtime came, and David emerged from his home office looking haggard. He stopped in the doorway of the living room, watching as Tommy laughed at something Margaret was saying. "I made sandwiches," Margaret said, noticing him. "Nothing fancy, just what I found in the kitchen. I hope that's all right." "You didn't have to do that. A child needs lunch," she said simply. "So does his father." They sat together at the kitchen table, and for the first time in what seemed like months, David Harrison relaxed. Margaret asked gentle questions, nothing intrusive, just the kind of conversation that fills the empty spaces. She learned that his wife, Emily, had passed away 18 months ago. Cancer, swift and merciless. That he'd thrown himself into his work as CEO of a manufacturing company, trying to provide, trying to stay busy enough not to drown in grief. "But Tommy needs more than I've been giving him," David admitted, his voice quiet. "I see that now. Every nanny I've hired, he pushes away. I thought he was just being difficult, but—" "He's protecting his heart," Margaret said. "When you lose someone that young, you learn that people can disappear. It makes the world feel unsafe." David looked at her, really looked at her, and saw understanding in her eyes. "You've experienced loss. My husband, Robert. 5 years now. Margaret smiled, though her eyes were sad. You never stop missing them. But you learn to carry the love forward. That's what helps. The afternoon flew by. Margaret finished her work. But she stayed longer than she needed to, reading Tommy stories, teaching him how to fold napkins into triangles like in a fancy restaurant. When it was time to leave, Tommy hugged her legs. Will you come back? He asked. Margaret looked at David, who was watching them with an expression she couldn't quite read. I'm sure your Aunt Sarah will be back tomorrow, Margaret said gently. Actually, David said quickly, would you consider staying on? Not just tomorrow, but regularly? I know this was supposed to be a one-time thing, but Tommy's responded to you in a way he hasn't with anyone else. And honestly, neither have I. Margaret felt warmth spread through her chest. Mr. Harrison, David, please. David, she continued, I'd be honored. And so began something unexpected. Margaret came 3 days a week at first, then 5. She brought order to the household, but more importantly, she brought warmth. She taught Tommy to bake cookies, filling the house with the smell of vanilla and chocolate chips. She convinced David to come home earlier, to sit with them at dinner, to remember that being a father meant being present, not just providing. Slowly, Tommy opened up. Slowly, David learned to smile again. One evening, 6 months after that first day, David found Margaret in the kitchen, humming as she washed dishes. Tommy was already asleep, tired from a day at the park. Margaret, he said, I want you to know, you saved us, both of us. She dried her hands on a towel, turning to face him. You saved yourselves, David. I just reminded you how. No, he said firmly. You showed us that kindness still exists, that it's okay to let someone in. That's a gift I can never repay. Margaret smiled, the kind of smile that held a lifetime of wisdom. You don't repay gifts like that. You pass them forward. Later, driving home under the stars, Margaret thought about the unexpected turns life takes. She'd simply covered a shift for her sister. She'd expected nothing more than a day's work. Instead, she'd found purpose again, and a new family to care for. Sometimes, she thought, the greatest blessings come disguised as small acts of kindness. You just have to be willing to show up.